The first thing Clara Whitmore felt was heat, blistering, merciless, seeping into her skin like it meant to brand her soul. It came before the pain, before the thirst, before memory. She didn't know where she was, only that her lips were cracked, her head throbbed, and her back was pressed to something hot and unyielding. The canyon. Her eyes opened slowly to a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Clouds moved like ghosts across it, unconcerned. Around her, red sandstone cliffs stretched into a jagged crown, boxing her in. The air tasted of dust and blood. She tried to sit up, failed. The pain came flooding in then, sharp in her shoulder, dull in her ribs, screaming in her ankle. Her arms were bound at the wrists. Rough rope, too tight. Her dress was torn along one side, soaked dark with sweat and something thicker. She blinked and turned her head. Flies buzzed near the wound on her thigh. It wasn't a dream. She remembered now. Jed's voice, low, steady, false as a gambler's smile. "It's better this way, darlin'." His hand brushing her cheek before the push. The fall. The deafening silence after the gunshot. Jed Rourke had left her for dead in this canyon. Clara swallowed, but her throat was too dry. Even her tears refused to come. The buzzards were circling above. Not close, not yet, but they knew. They always knew. For a while, she lay there, letting the sun beat down on her like a punishment. Her mind wandered, images floating up like smoke. Her first husband's warm eyes, the smell of coffee in the morning, the softness of a wool shawl. All gone. Taken by fever 2 winters ago. Now she had this, a body broken in the desert and a soul aching in its silence. But Clara Whitmore had never been the kind to give up quietly. She rolled onto her side with a groan, grit digging into her cheek. The canyon floor baked like a skillet beneath her. She worked her wrists against the rope. No use. Her hands were going numb. Her breath came short and shallow. Somewhere, a coyote yipped in the distance. "You bastard," she whispered, voice hoarse. "You sorry, lying bastard." Jed had sweet-talked her into marriage 6 months ago. All charm and golden promises. She should have known better. Should have listened to her gut when he never looked her in the eyes long. When his smile never quite reached the edges. But she had been lonely, tired of the stares from townsfolk and the quiet judgment in their greetings. He offered her escape. Turns out, he was the trap. She gritted her teeth and kicked her good leg forward, inching herself toward the shadow of a boulder. The sun moved slow, but it burned fast. Each inch felt like a mile. The canyon mocked her with its stillness. No help, no hope, only her. And then there, a shard of black stone, sharp as broken glass, half buried in the dust. Obsidian. She reached for it, her fingers clawing through sand, stretching. Just barely. She hooked it with 2 fingers and dragged it toward her chest. It was hot to the touch. She winced, but didn't let go. Twisting awkwardly, she began to saw at the rope binding her wrists. Each scrape sent pain lancing through her arm, but she didn't stop. Sweat trickled into her eyes. Her breath hitched. A sound startled her. A rock shifting. She froze. Nothing. She cut faster. The rope frayed. Snapped. Her arms fell free. She nearly cried then, but the tears still wouldn't come. She sat up slowly, cradling her injured leg. Blood had dried in streaks down her shin. She took the obsidian and cut at the bindings on her ankles, cursing through clenched teeth. A gust of wind stirred dust across the canyon floor. It whispered over the rocks like something alive. Clara stood, or tried to. Her right ankle buckled, sending her crashing back down. She bit down on a scream. She'd have to crawl. By sunset, she'd made it 20 yards. Every limb shook. Her skin was blistered. Her tongue, a strip of dry leather. But she kept going. The will inside her burned hotter than the sun above. Not just survival, vengeance. Her memory played Jed's smirk over and over like a needle skipping on a record. She was going to kill him, or haunt him until something else did. When she finally collapsed against the canyon wall, darkness was pooling at the edges of the sky. Stars peeked through. The wind had grown colder, slicing across her sun-scorched skin like a knife. She lay back, eyes half-lidded, whispering to no one. "Is that all you've got, world?" Her voice was swallowed by the canyon. She tried again, louder. "Help someone." A broken sob escaped her lips. Her voice echoed off stone, bounced back, sounding as small and lost as she felt. She coughed, sat up again, and screamed. Not a polite call for aid. Not a pretty, ladylike plea. A scream that ripped from her belly, raw, wild, furious. A scream that told the canyon, the stars, the gods themselves, that Clara Whitmore wasn't ready to die. She screamed until her throat burned, until her voice cracked, until silence swallowed her again. Then she waited. Long minutes passed. Nothing. She closed her eyes. Sleep tugged at her, dark and deep. She welcomed it. But then, footsteps. Soft, deliberate, crunching over sand and stone. Clara's eyes snapped open. She tried to sit up, couldn't. Panic surged. A figure appeared at the canyon's edge. Tall, lean, silhouetted by the last sliver of sunlight. The figure descended slowly, moving with a predator's grace. He wore buckskin and carried a long rifle across his back. His black hair was tied behind his head, and turquoise gleamed at his wrist. He stopped a few feet from her. Clara's breath caught. He crouched, eyes sharp, unreadable. "You cry like a warrior," he said. His voice was deep and steady, with an accent that curled the words like smoke. Clara blinked. You're real." He didn't answer. Instead, he knelt beside her, opened a leather canteen, and tilted it to her lips. The water was lukewarm, but tasted like heaven. She drank until she coughed. "Easy," he murmured. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Who are you?" He considered her a moment. "Ashkai." "Clara," she said breathlessly. "Clara Whitmore." He nodded once, then pulled a small pouch from his belt. Inside was crushed herb, which he mixed with water and dabbed onto her leg. It stung like fire. She flinched. "Sorry," he said, but his hands never wavered. "You a doctor?" "No." "What are you then?" "Man who heard scream." She studied him as he worked. His skin was bronze, his face etched with calm. Not young, not old. A scar curved beneath one eye. He wore silence like armor. He tied a strip of cloth around her leg and sat back. "Who did this to you?" Clara hesitated. "Then, my husband." He didn't react. "He left me here," she added. "Shot me. Thought I wouldn't get back up." Ashkai looked at the stars. He was wrong. Tears welled in her eyes. Finally, they came. "I don't understand. Why would he?" Ashkai stood. "Because weak men fear strong women." Clara stared after him as he walked a few steps away, scanning the ridge. She didn't know whether to laugh or sob. Her heart was a tangle of emotions: grief, rage, relief. He returned a moment later. "Can you ride?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "We try." He helped her to her feet. She leaned on him heavily. His arm was solid as a tree trunk. A horse stood nearby, silent, dark, patient. Ashkai lifted her into the saddle with surprising gentleness. She bit back a scream as her ankle twisted. He climbed up behind her, guiding the horse with quiet commands. As they rode deeper into the canyon, Clara leaned back against him, exhaustion stealing her thoughts. But one remained. She would live. She would heal. And Jed Rourke would pay for everything he had done. The canyon narrowed to a sliver of moonlight between towering red walls as the horse carried them deeper into silence. Clara leaned against Ashkai's chest, not by choice but by necessity. Her body throbbed in places she didn't know could hurt. His arms circled her waist, not intimate, not hesitant, just solid, steady, like he was used to carrying things broken by the world. She didn't speak. He didn't ask. The horse moved at a deliberate pace, careful not to jostle her more than needed. When the path finally widened, Ashkai turned them toward a split in the canyon wall, narrow and half-hidden behind a rockslide. A goat trail, if that. But the man guided his horse without a word, as if he knew every inch of this land by heart. They emerged into a hollowed cove tucked between sandstone arches. Here, the wind quieted. The stars thickened overhead, and the air smelled faintly of sage and cooling earth. A small fire pit marked the center. bones from old meals, scorch marks. Ashki dismounted first, then reached up to ease her down. Clara gasped when her foot touched the ground. Pain like lightning ripped through her leg, and she collapsed against him, breath hissing through clenched teeth. He caught her. Without a word, he carried her in both arms to a bedroll set beneath a shallow rock shelf. The stone overhead was blackened from past fires. She saw a blanket folded with care, the end of the bough leaning against the wall. This wasn't a campsite. It was a home, if a man like him ever called a place that. Clara tried to speak, but the ache in her ribs stole her breath. Ashki knelt beside her, unwrapping the cloth he'd tied hours earlier. He studied the wound, no fresh bleeding, but angry and swollen. With gentle precision, he pressed fingers around the edge. She winced. "You didn't scream this time," he said quietly. "I'm too tired," she muttered. He nodded once, approving. Then he stood and moved to the fire pit. She watched as he collected twigs and dry grass from a crevice nearby, built a small pyramid, and sparked a flame with flint and steel. Soon, the fire crackled, casting long shadows across the stone walls. Ashki poured water into a pot and added a pinch of something green from a pouch. The scent drifted toward her, bitter, clean, sharp like mint and smoke. When he returned, he cradled her head and held the pot to her lips. "What is it?" she asked, voice hoarse. "For pain," he answered. "And sleep. I don't trust you yet." "You don't have to," he said. "But you'll need your strength." She drank. It tasted awful, but warmth bloomed in her chest, chasing the cold from her bones. She sank back into the blanket. Ashki adjusted it over her shoulders. "You gonna stay there all night?" she asked. "I don't sleep easy when people bleed near me." Clara smirked despite herself. "Ain't that poetic?" He didn't answer, just sat across from her, legs crossed, rifle resting beside him. The firelight danced in his eyes, casting strange patterns across his face. For a long while, neither spoke. The wind whispered through the rocks, and somewhere far above, an owl hooted once. Then she said, "I guess I owe you thanks." "You don't." "Well, I'm saying it anyway." Ashki inclined his head slightly. "What kind of man rides toward a scream in the canyon?" she asked. "One who's heard it before." She tilted her head. "You lose someone?" His eyes shifted to the fire. "My brother. 10 years ago. Taken by cavalry patrol. They said he was stealing horses. He wasn't." Clara swallowed hard. "What happened?" "They sent him back in pieces." She looked down at her hands. "I'm sorry." Ashki's jaw tightened. The wind cried for days after, loud enough to wake the dead. "Maybe he screamed too," Clara said softly. Ashki met her gaze. "Maybe he did." She sat with that a moment, letting the silence settle between them like dust. Then she pulled the blanket tighter. "Why live out here? No town, no roof, no people." "People kill each other over things that don't matter," he said. "Out here, it's just truth." Clara nodded slowly. "I think I like that." "You wouldn't," he said. "Not for long." He stood then, moved to the edge of the cove, and scanned the trail behind them. The moonlight caught on his rifle barrel. "You expecting someone?" she asked. "I saw smoke earlier. North Ridge." "Not mine." Clara's blood turned cold. "Jed." "Could be. He'll come back to make sure I'm dead." Ashki looked over his shoulder. "Then we won't be here when he does." She watched him disappear into the shadows, checking the perimeter. Her fingers curled into the blanket. She had known Jed would try to finish the job. Outlaws didn't leave loose ends. But now, under this quiet stone sky, she felt something strange creep in. Hope. By morning, her leg throbbed less. The swelling had eased. Ashki gave her jerky and bread. Neither tasted good, but she ate. When she tried to stand, he didn't stop her. She leaned on him again, gritting her teeth. "You walk like a drunk mule," he said. She chuckled. "You talk like one." He led her to a rock ledge overlooking the canyon's bend. From here, the world unfolded, flatlands, distant mountains, and the faint smoke plume on the horizon. She squinted. "Too far for a campfire." Ashki said, "Unless it's a big camp." She turned to him. "You ever kill a man?" He didn't blink. "Yes." "Would you again?" "If he needed killing." Clara nodded. Jed does. Ashki studied her. Revenge costs more than it gives. I'm not after revenge, she said. I'm after justice. They looked the same in the dark. They returned to the cove, and that evening, he showed her how to hold a knife properly. She gripped it wrong at first. He corrected her without words. When she asked why, he simply said, "If he finds us first, you'll need more than prayers." They practiced in the fading light. Clara's movements were slow, unsteady, but Ashki was patient. He moved like water, effortless. She hated how easy he made it look. Afterward, she slumped against the rock wall, sweaty and sore. "Teach me to shoot next. You'll scare the birds." "I scare worse things," she muttered. That night, Ashki left a trail of false prints down the canyon path. Clara watched him from the shadows, marveling at the way he moved, as if part of the land itself. He returned after midnight and tossed her a small pouch. "Tobacco," he said. "Smoke it. The scent will cover us." She didn't smoke. Never had. But she lit it anyway. "Thank you," she said again. Ashki looked toward the ridge. "He'll come soon. Then we make ready. You really want to fight him?" "I don't want to," she said. "I need to." Ashki nodded. They sat together in silence once more, two strangers joined by pain and purpose. As the fire dwindled, Clara reached for the obsidian shard she'd used to cut herself free. She turned it over in her hand. "This saved me," she said. Ashki looked at it. "It cuts both ways." "I'll remember that." She leaned back and closed her eyes, the smoke curling around her. For the first time in days, her body surrendered to rest, not because it had no choice, but because she felt, in the presence of this strange man, something dangerously close to safe. Morning came with birdsong and golden light. Ashki was already gone. She sat up, half-panicked, until he appeared again, carrying a rabbit strung by its legs. He skinned and cooked it without ceremony. They ate quickly. Clara limped a little easier now. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He nodded. "Why did you help me?" Ashki didn't answer right away. He wiped his hands and tossed a bone into the fire. "Because the last time I heard a scream like that, I didn't move fast enough." Clara studied his face. "You still hear it? Every time I close my eyes." She reached across the space between them and touched his hand. "You got there in time this time." He looked at her, then down at their hands. "I know," he said. They didn't speak of it again. Later that day, as the shadows stretched long and the canyon wind picked up, Ashki pointed toward the bend in the trail. "Tracks," he said. "3 horses. Fresh. Heading this way." Clara's chest tightened. "Then it's begun." Ashki slung his rifle over his shoulder. "Then we don't run." She met his gaze. "No. We make them hunt something they can't catch." His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Clara stood beside him, her leg wrapped tight, knife at her hip. The wind rose, carrying the scent of dust and danger. The hunted were becoming hunters. And Clara Whitmore was ready. The wind carried the scent of horses. Ashki crouched beside the narrow trail, fingers brushing the soft dust. Clara watched him from the shadows of a sandstone outcrop. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She could see it in the way he frowned, the tension in his jaw. Someone was close. He rose slowly, eyes scanning the cliffs above. 3 men, he said. Same boots as before. One's got a limp. Clara nodded. That's Hank. Jed's right hand. Mean drunk, worse sober. Ashki gaze flicked toward her. How many total? 4, maybe 5. Jed always keeps 1 man behind with the horses. 4, Ashki echoed, then pointed to a dry wash cutting through the canyon floor. We'll lead them that way. Funnel them. Clara followed him down the slope, her ankle tightly wrapped, the pain duller now. She had learned to move with care, to listen like he taught her. The land spoke if you knew how to listen. A crow's cry could be warning. A shifted stone might mean pursuit. Every noise mattered. They reached the wash and began laying false trails, boots dragged in the wrong direction, broken branches arranged deliberately. Ashki showed her how to set a trip line using cactus needles and fishing line. She practiced twice before he nodded, satisfied. You're quick, he said. I'm angry, she replied. that earned the ghost of a smile. By midday, they had rigged 3 traps, a deadfall with sharp stones, a spook mule tethered near an unstable cliff edge, and a thorn snare hidden beneath a dusting of red sand. Clara watched Ashki work with a kind of reverence. He moved like a man who understood the bones of the world, placing weight where it wouldn't echo, leaving no trace unless he wanted it seen. As the sun climbed, they retreated to a ridge overlooking the trail. They waited. The silence stretched. Clara's fingers gripped the rifle Ashki had handed her. It was heavier than she expected. The wood was smooth, worn down from years of use. She'd never killed a man before. Part of her feared what it would feel like. Part of her feared she wouldn't feel anything at all. Ashki broke the silence. "You ready?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm willing." "That's enough." Below them, the first rider appeared, dust rising behind him like smoke. Then another. A third followed. All wore dark hats and sweat-soaked shirts, rifles slung, pistols loose at their hips. One man leaned heavily to the left. Hank. Even at this distance, Clara could see the sneer he wore like a badge. Ashki handed her a pair of old field glasses. She steadied them against the rock. Jed wasn't with them. She breathed out slowly. "He's not here." Ashki nodded. "That's good." "How's that good?" "We'll make them talk." The outlaws moved slowly, scanning the cliffs, occasionally calling out. "Clara," one of them shouted, laughing. "You out there, sweetheart? Boss said we should bring your ears back this time." She flinched, but only for a moment. Then she set the glasses down and reached for a knife. "Let's show them where I am." Ashki didn't argue. They let the first man ride through the snare. A sharp snap, a scream, and the horse bolted. Clara watched as the outlaw crumpled, cursing and clutching his leg. Thorn needles had buried deep. He rolled in the dust, trying to crawl back to his rifle. The second man dismounted, confused. "What the hell?" Ashki's arrow punched through his chest. He fell without a sound. The third man, Hank, spurred his horse around, trying to retreat. Clara sighted down the rifle. Her breath held. The shot cracked like thunder. Hank tumbled from the saddle, landing in a heap. They approached cautiously. Ashki moved first, bow ready. Clara kept the rifle up, pulse hammering in her ears. Hank was alive, barely. Blood seeped from a wound in his side, and one leg bent wrong. He stared up at Clara with bleary, hate-filled eyes. "You," he spat. "Me," she said, kneeling beside him. "Where's Jed?" "Go to hell." Ashki stepped closer. "Where?" Hank laughed, teeth red. "Jed's gonna skin you both. Hang your guts from a mesquite tree." Clara pressed the rifle barrel against his cheek. "Where?" He swallowed, then coughed blood. "South Ridge, near the old Spanish ruins. He's waiting for us to come back with proof. If we don't, he'll come." Clara stood. "Then we won't wait for him." She turned away. Ashki's arrow ended Hank's laughter. They buried the bodies under a rocky overhang and took what supplies they could: bullets, canteens, a saddlebag with stale biscuits and jerky. Ashki tossed a red scarf onto the path, letting it flutter in the wind. "He'll follow that," he said. Clara didn't ask how he knew. She believed him. They rode east, away from the bodies, taking a narrow trail that wound through stone arches and gullies. The horses' hooves echoed off the canyon walls like distant drums. Ashki guided them with purpose, scanning the terrain with the eyes of a man who saw threat in every shadow. By dusk, they reached a rise overlooking a cluster of broken walls, ancient ruins, sunken and weathered, tucked into a basin of sand and scrub. Clay bricks crumbled beneath a long-dead tree. A circle of stones suggested a fire pit. "Spanish mission?" Clara asked. "Or what was left of one?" They dismounted. Ashki led her through the ruins, showing her the angles, the blind spots, the places someone could hide or strike from. She listened carefully, soaking in every word. "We fight here?" she asked. "No," he said. "We draw him here." That night, they laid their last trap. Clara used the scarf to mark the trail. Ashki scattered boot tracks, mimicking Hank's limp. They left ashes, bullet casings, even a boot print in dried blood. Everything led to the mission. They rested behind a low wall. Clara cleaned the rifle again, fingers moving with new confidence. "You think he'll come?" she asked. "He'll come." She looked at him in the firelight. "You always this certain?" "No," he said, "but I've never been wrong." Clara smiled faintly. "What did you do before all this?" "I hunted men." "Bounty hunter?" "Sometimes," he said. "Other times, I just needed them gone." She nodded. "You're good at it." "So are you." She laughed. "I've barely done anything." "You crawled through death and didn't die. That's something." She turned toward the fire, the silence settling like a second skin. "I didn't think I'd ever feel this again." "What?" "Like I mattered." Ashki didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "To some men, a woman's only worth is how quiet she stays. But you're louder than all this stone, Clara Whitmore." Her breath caught. "You think I'm ready?" she whispered. "No," he said, "but you're willing." The words steadied her. The next morning came with hard light and long shadows. They heard Jed before they saw him. His voice carried like a bullet through the canyon. "Clara," he shouted. "You got my boys killed, didn't you, sweetheart?" Ashki and Clara crouched behind the broken altar wall, weapons ready. Through a crack, she saw him. Jed Rourke, tall, lean, and still dressed like a gentleman outlaw. His black coat flapped in the wind. Two men rode behind him. One was young, the other older, nervous. "I figured you'd come looking for revenge," Jed called. "But I'm here to offer mercy. Come out, and maybe I only cut off a finger." Clara's fingers curled tight on the rifle. Ashki glanced at her. She nodded. He stepped out first. Jed's eyes narrowed. "Well, ain't you a sight? You the one who's been meddling, mister?" "No," Ashki said. "I'm the one who's been watching." Jed's grin faded. Clara stepped out behind him. Jed's face went still. "You," he said. "Me," she answered. He laughed, cold, cruel. "Didn't I shoot you once?" "Missed something vital," she said. "You look different," he said, his voice softening. "Stronger." "You look smaller," she said. Jed drew. Ashki's arrow knocked the pistol from his hand before it cleared leather. Gunfire erupted. Clara dove behind a wall. One of Jed's men screamed and fell. The young one turned his horse and fled. Jed ran for cover, pulling a second pistol. Clara moved. She circled the ruins, flanking him. He fired twice, wild, desperate. She waited, counted, then stepped into view. He swung the pistol toward her. She shot him in the leg. Jed fell with a howl, pistol flying from his grip. She walked toward him, heart pounding. "Still think I'm too proud?" she asked. He snarled up at her. "You were nothing but a quiet, pretty thing. I made you." She raised the rifle. "I made me." He reached for his boot knife. She kicked it away and leveled the barrel at his heart. Ashki appeared behind her, watching. Jed wheezed. "You gonna kill me, girl?" Clara stared into his eyes, searching for the man she'd once thought she loved. But he wasn't there. Just greed, cruelty, cowardice. "I don't have to," she said. She stepped back. Ashki pulled his knife and approached. Jed's eyes widened. "Wait." Ashki silenced him with one stroke. Clara turned away, heart pounding, breath shaking. The wind rose again, rustling through the ruins. She didn't cry. Not for Jed. Not anymore. Ashki joined her, cleaning his blade. "You did what you came to do," he said. "I thought I'd feel more." "You will. Later." They gathered their things. Burned what they didn't need. Clara found the obsidian shard again, still tucked in her coat pocket. She held it up to the sun. Ashki mounted the horse, offering his hand. Clara took it and climbed up behind him. They rode out of the ruins together, the canyon stretching wide and bright before them. The hunted had become the hunters, and Clara Whitmore was ready for whatever came next. They buried Jed Rourke under moonlight, not out of kindness, not out of guilt. It was something else, something colder and older. Clara couldn't name it, but it hummed through her blood as she watched Ashki cover the last mound of earth with a flat stone. She'd chosen the spot herself, beneath the broken arch of the old mission, where nothing ever grew. Ashki pressed his palm to the stone, murmured something in a tongue she didn't recognize. She didn't ask what it meant. It wasn't for her. The night was silent except for the wind. It moved through the ruins like a ghost unsure of its place, brushing against their skin, lifting the edge of Clara's coat. The fire they'd built nearby popped and hissed, but gave no warmth she could feel. She sat cross-legged beside the flames, arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the dark. She thought she might cry, or scream, or collapse. But nothing came. Ashki returned and sat opposite her. His face, as always, was unreadable, but his silence tonight carried weight. "You didn't have to kill him," she said. He nodded once. "But I did. I was going to let him rot. Let time finish him. He would have come back. Or sent someone else." She stared into the flames. "He said he made me. Like I was clay. Like I was something he could shape." "You made yourself," Ashki said. "I don't know who I am now." He leaned forward, tossing a dry twig into the fire. "Then you're ready to become her." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The fire died to coals, and above them, the stars wheeled slow and eternal. Clara closed her eyes and listened to her heartbeat. It no longer galloped. It moved steady now, measured, ready. When she opened them again, Ashki was watching her. "You heading west?" she asked. He shook his head. "South. There's a man there who sells land that isn't his." Clara tilted her head. "You always chase men who think they're untouchable. Only when they start hurting women." A soft smile touched her lips. "I suppose I owe you more than a thank you." "You don't owe me anything. I might still follow you. You wouldn't like the road." "I didn't like the canyon either," she said, "but I walked out of it." Ashki looked at her a long moment, then nodded. At sunrise, they rode together through the broken lands beyond the ruins. They passed the remains of a wrecked stagecoach, bleached animal bones, the glitter of something metal half buried in the sand. The world was full of remnants, things left behind, forgotten. But Clara felt no fear. Not anymore. They stopped at a hill overlooking the plains. In the distance, far beyond the haze, smoke curled skyward from some settlement, too far to see, but close enough to reach by sundown. Clara dismounted, let her boots find the dust again. Her legs still ached, but she no longer limped. Her hands no longer trembled. She turned toward Ashki, and for the first time saw him not as a rescuer or guide, but as a mirror. "I think I'm ready," she said. "For what?" "For everything." He looked down the trail, then back at her. "You know where to go." She nodded. "There's a town past the basin. Sheriff there used to respect the law. I've got a story to tell." Ashki adjusted the strap of his rifle. "Then tell it loud." "Stay with me a while?" she asked. He hesitated. Then he said, "Until the story's told." They rode together again, not speaking much. The land stretched around them, wide and watching. Buzzards circle high, disinterested now. The trail curved toward a ravine where wildflowers grew out of stone, stubborn as breath. They made camp at dusk beside a creek, the first water Clara had seen in days that ran clear and fast. She knelt beside it, washed her face, and caught her reflection, tanned, sharp-eyed, a scar beneath her jaw she hadn't noticed until now. She smiled at it. Ashki sat nearby, skinning a rabbit. She watched his hands move and realized how much she'd learned just from following his lead. Not just how to move or shoot or lay a trap, but how to wait, how to choose a moment. Later, as stars prickled the sky, he tossed her a piece of roasted meat. "Why me?" she asked between bites. He raised an eyebrow. "Why help me at all?" He took his time answering. "You screamed like someone who hadn't given up yet," he said. Clara nodded. That felt true. When sleep came, it came fast. She dreamed of canyon winds and stone eyes watching from cliffs. She dreamed of Jed's face melting into smoke. But she didn't wake screaming. Not this time. They reached the town just after noon. It was small, 2 saloons, 1 general store, a dusty main street framed by leaning buildings and rusted signs. The sheriff's office stood at the end of the street like a weary sentinel. Clara dismounted and handed the reins to a boy watching from a stable. Ashki said, "You want me to come?" She shook her head. Not yet. She walked across the street, spurs clinking, dust curling around her boots. Heads turned. A few whispers followed. She opened the sheriff's door without knocking. The man inside looked up, startled. He was graying at the temples now, thicker in the gut, but his eyes were the same, sharp, suspicious. "Clara Whitmore," he said, standing. "By God, I thought you were dead," she finished. "I was close." He moved around the desk. "What happened to you?" She dropped Jed's bloodied scarf on the floor. "I have a story," she said, "and you're going to help me tell it." An hour later, she stepped back outside. The sheriff had paled by the end of her tale. He promised telegrams, warrants, names. Ashki waited in the shade beside the saloon, sipping water from a tin cup. She approached him. "Town's shaking," she said. "Good. They'll come looking for who helped me. I won't be here." She hesitated. "I could come with you." He looked at her a long time. "You could." "But I won't," she finished. He nodded. She reached into her coat pocket and pressed something into his palm. The obsidian shard. "You gave me this without knowing," she said. "Now I'm giving it back." He closed his fingers around it. "What happens now?" he asked. Clara turned toward the street, the wind brushing her cheek. "I make noise," she said. "And if someone tries to silence you?" She smiled. "They'll learn what Jed did." Ashki stepped back, slung his rifle, and turned toward the edge of town. She watched him ride off, no goodbye, no promises. Just a shadow returning to the land. Clara turned and walked into the saloon. The piano stopped. Men looked up. She went straight to the bar, dropped a coin, and ordered whiskey. When the barkeep poured, he asked, "What brings you to this dusty place, miss?" She lifted the glass. "Justice," she said, "and the story that comes after." She drank. And somewhere beyond the hills, beneath the moon's watching eye, the wind carried her name like a warning.